Accolade devices went live in UEFN a couple days ago, and as far as I'm concerned, you absolutely must add them to your map before you publish it. I'll go through why later on, but first, an exciting lecture about intrinsic and extrinsic motivations in game design. Designers generally divide motivation into two categories, intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic, things you do for yourself. I want to win 75% of my 1v1s. I want to help other people with the YouTube channel I make. I want to play games with my friends. Sums up a lot of these very well. Extrinsic is I get a cool skin. I get some gold. I get some experience. I get paid by YouTube if I get 1,000 subscribers. Generally, extrinsic rewards provide short-term effective hits of dopamine, whereas intrinsic rewards are the kinds of things that keep players coming back. One goal in building a game is to create a system where you give people extrinsic rewards slowly, but at the same time, you're building an experience interesting enough and deep enough that they enjoy the intrinsic rewards that they build for themselves. You need to give out EXP as close to launch as possible, because if you lose players on launch, you lose players forever. Let me show you some data on that I have. This is the graph of plays that my island got. You can see where it launched, and then later you can see where I launched a update, but see the giant drops. The giant drop after launch, the giant drops after update. When you don't retain, you don't get as many plays through any algorithm, even the Steam algorithm. This is my graph for my Steam game Word Crystal. You can see there's one big spike where I launch into early access, one minor spike where I launch into actual release, and the rest is just sort of an asymptotic taper to zero. This is standard. And where it comes into play with the accolades device is the accolades device needs some time to calibrate. For a day or two, if your map is okay, your players won't get EXP and they won't come back. And so if you don't calibrate during that first initial time, you will have a massive problem because you won't be able to calibrate later. Several seasoned map makers tell me that it takes 2 to 4 days with 1,000 players a day to calibrate. Have your accolades set up before you release and test, because if you re-release after your release, your map will need to calibrate XP again, and when it calibrates XP again, your players aren't getting XP. On to the modifications I made to my map to get it to give out some EXP. First, I did some reorganizing of my device folders. It turns out my code is horribly structured. I didn't expect this project to be anything but a demo. I've added a folder for the accolade devices. Accolades are granted by devices like coins or points. So I name my accolade devices for what I want to grant EXP for, and then start looking for when I already grant score or coins. I have both time and activity-based grants in this map. So we need to look at two kinds of code. Here's the timed grantor device I built that grants coins, and we'll add an editable accolades device and add the call to the granting here. We'll talk a little bit about architecture here. We want devices to follow the single responsibility principle, be responsible for one thing if possible. However, when a map starts to get as big as this one, there start to be vulnerabilities to failure on my part. I hook everything up to 25 different devices, I'm very likely to make a single mistake. What I want to do is minimize the number of devices we have if possible. There's a compromise to be made between devices that have only one purpose and a small enough number of devices that I am likely to make fewer mistakes. We also have a device that handles all of the eliminations. Because I've got 6 guard spawners attached to one device, I don't need those 6 devices to handle accolades for defeating guards. The player's elimination device is a different kind of device. It will also handle my accolades for player eliminations. I've got all the code all set up for those. Biggest problem is the end of round accolades. I would like to assign extra experience to players who finish a round and who win a round. What we need to do is completely hijack the end of the round. A round settings device is used to co-op the end of the round. First thing you do is on begin, disable the end of the round, then start watching the scores of each team, as well as a timer that marks the end of the round. I have divided this into two pieces. One piece manages the accolades, and the other piece manages the end of the round. I've created the score tracker device with the intention of tracking team scores, as well as the in-game score required to end the game, and having a game clock come in tracks whether or not the time has elapsed for the full game. You can do this several ways, but I did it the dumb way. The right way to do this is anytime you score, you check to see if the game is over, and anytime subscribe to the game clock success event and mark the game over then. That way you don't need to have this polling. I was in a hurry, so I did things the dumb way. And every 5 seconds, I check for whether or not I've set a round over variable to true, and if the round over variable is to true, I check the in-game. This check for in-game score could be at the end of score for team. I wouldn't need to do this polling thing, which broke a couple times anyway. This is ugly, but it functions. And this code definitely needs to be rewritten. It's very complicated where it should be simple. That is the primary sign of bad code. One arguably nice thing about programming is that it keeps you in touch with your own fallibility. I messed up here. Everybody messes up while programming. Everybody. And I mean, my map still works. People play it. People enjoy it. I enjoy it. And that's the best I can do. Anyway, like, subscribe if you would please, and we'll see you again next time.